The frame alignment secret. Why most restored muscle cars drive worse than they did in 1970. What if I told you that the reason your $100,000 restored muscle car wanders across the highway lane is not a worn steering box or cheap shocks? If you are about to weld subframe connectors onto your car, or you just bolted in a full set of polyurethane bushings to fix a sloppy ride, you need to pause. The instability you feel when you hit a bump at 60 miles per hour is often a structural error made while the car was simply hanging in the air. In the right hands, a 1970 chassis was a highly capable track platform. Engineers at the Norwood plant did not build rigid tanks. They built a system. But today, builders toss the original assembly methodology aside. They blindly weld reinforcements while the car sags unsupported on a two-post lift, permanently locking a twisted structural error into the geometry. Today we are conducting a forensic audit of muscle car frame alignment. We will look at the exact factory measurements and show you why bolting modern rigid parts to an unsupported vintage unibody creates a wandering boat. Before you drop your car off at the chassis shop, watch this breakdown. Many builders operate on the assumption that a 1970 chassis must be engineered to the rigidity of a modern steel beam. To understand why modifying this structure causes dynamic instability, we must examine the 1970 Norwood assembly line and Pontiac Special Projects engineer Herb Adams. Adams was engineering a platform to compete with the track-focused Ford Mustang Boss 302. Pontiac even utilized a legal provision by paying the Sports Car Club of America a $5 royalty per vehicle to use the Trans Am name on a production car. This tied showroom production directly to racing homologation. Modern shops look at the C-channel frame and assume it is weak. Engineering records show Detroit built a calculated flex variable into the chassis. The structure was mathematically designed to twist mere millimeters under load, acting as an undamped secondary spring. This allowed the car to absorb the extreme rebound forces that tall bias ply tires could not handle. Forensic review of internal documentation reveals a significant conflict between engineering reality and corporate messaging. General Motors management and marketing departments deliberately suppress the mathematical flex data from public release. The marketing division insisted on promoting an image of rock-solid durability to the general public. Corporate leadership calculated that advertising a dynamically bending chassis would trigger mass warranty claims from consumers, who routinely equated flexibility with structural failure. Consequently, the engineering team was forced to implement this critical dynamic geometry in absolute secrecy, leaving the math out of sales brochures and hiding it within restricted engineering binders. The performance data validated the engineering approach. The 1970 Trans Am achieved a 14.02 quarter-mile at 102 miles per hour, while the Mustang Boss 302 ran 14.8 seconds. The Trans Am also generated approximately 0.80 g of lateral acceleration. This capability required absolute geometric control. At the Norwood plant, bare shells were clamped into multi-ton steel frame jigs, and the factory method secured specific datum reference points to maintain a strict cross-car tolerance of plus or minus 1.5 millimeters before a single body panel was welded. Today, a body shop will strip that 50-year-old metal and hang it on a rotisserie. Gravity sags the unsupported chassis for months. Welding new floors into that state does not upgrade the geometry. It permanently alters the kinematic baseline of the vehicle and creates the wandering handling issues you experience on the road. Open any aftermarket catalog, and they will sell you on polyurethane bushings. The pitch is simple. Stiffer is faster, rubber is dead. It's a brilliant marketing illusion that is quietly assassinating your Restomod's dynamic geometry. Let's look at the cold forensic data. Natural OEM elastomer rubber sits at a 50 to 60A durometer scale. It was engineered not just to pivot, but to deflect across multiple axes. Aftermarket polyurethane clocks in at a rigid 80 to 95A. When you shove 95A poly into factory 1970 control arms without recalculating the roll center, you trigger catastrophic suspension bind. Here is the terrifying math. Tests prove that a standard two-piece polyurethane bushing can require over 124 foot-pounds of torque just to force a control arm to rotate a mere 5 degrees. Your suspension is no longer absorbing the track. It's transmitting every violent lateral G-force directly into the vintage sheet metal. Even Herb Adams, the architect of Pontiac's handling dominance, publicly refused to use urethane leaf spring mounts on street-driven cars because of the extreme harshness. Why? Because Detroit engineers exploited a brilliant mechanical loophole: compliance steer. On a 1970 Camaro Z/28, they deliberately utilized rubber's predictable deflection under heavy cornering loads to pull the front wheels into a slight toe-in. This engineered distortion created a survivable understeer at the limit. When you bolt in rigid poly, you delete the factory's hidden safety net, transforming a balanced weapon into a snap-over steering liability the second you push it hard. Many builders install 2-inch lowering springs to achieve an aggressive stance on a 1970 F-body. This aesthetic decision initiates a geometric collapse known as camber curve inversion. The factory's short long-arm suspension was mathematically designed around a specific ride height to work exclusively with the bias ply tires of that era. When you drop the chassis by 2 inches without physically relocating the upper control arm mounts, you push the front roll center completely underground. During cornering, a properly engineered suspension compresses and generates negative camber. This keeps the tire flat against the pavement. The lowered factory geometry does the exact opposite by creating positive camber gain. The top of the wheel tilts outward and violently lifts the inner edge of the tire off the asphalt. Ford and SCCA racers knew about this fatal flaw early on. Ford suspension engineer Klaus Arning mathematically proved that simply lowering the car ruined dynamic handling. His mechanical loophole was the Arning drop. He relocated the upper control arm, mounting holes exactly 1 inch lower on the shock tower. This tiny geometric shift mechanically forced the camber curve back into the negative spectrum. Modern builders often ignore this math. They just install shorter springs and bolt on modern radial tires. In the factory era, tall and flexible bias ply tires absorbed geometric flaws. The tire sidewall physically distorted to maintain road contact and acted as an active suspension joint. Modern radial tires feature rigid sidewalls that demand a perfectly flat contact patch. When a lowered suspension forces a modern radial into positive camber, the effective contact patch shrinks by up to 50%. And this geometric failure explains why a stock 1970 Trans Am could pull 0.80 G on a skid pad, while a modern lowered build plows into severe understeer at 0.70 G. The forensic solution is not stiffer springs, but correcting the fundamental suspension math. Subframe connectors are a standard structural upgrade for vintage unibody vehicles. A critical process control failure frequently occurs when shops install them using a standard 2-post lift. With the wheels suspended in the air, the unsupported mass of the cast iron V8 engine and the solid rear axle induces a longitudinal chassis sag. Recall that Norwood factory datum points maintained a strict cross-car tolerance of plus or minus 1.5 millimeters. Forensic measurements demonstrate that simply lifting a 1970 F-body off the ground on a 2-post lift can spread the distance between the front shock towers by up to 6.35 millimeters. Applying a permanent weld to the subframe connectors while the vehicle is in this deflected state locks the chassis into that unnatural geometry. When the vehicle is lowered and the suspension is loaded, the unibody cannot return to its static baseline. This results in permanent alignment discrepancies, such as caster angles mismatched side to side by over 1 degree. These deviations cannot be corrected with standard camber bolts. Operational symptoms include doors binding when parked on uneven surfaces and unexplained stress cracks appearing in the windshield glass. This is a procedural error, not a defect in the aftermarket component. Contrast this procedural error with intentional geometry manipulation from the factory era. When Herb Adams needed to alter the Trans Am launch characteristics, he utilized a calculated mechanical loophole, now referred to as the Herb Adams mod. He relocated the front leaf spring mounting point 19 mm to 25 mm higher into the chassis structure. This specific adjustment shifted the suspension instant center backward and lower, significantly increasing anti-squat and traction on corner exit. To achieve the necessary clearance, the floor pan directly behind the driver's seat had to be cut. Adams fabricated discrete steel covers to conceal these modifications from competitors, presenting a geometric advantage as pure engine performance. That is engineered chassis manipulation. Welding a deflected chassis on a two-post lift is simply a structural compromise. The Restomod industry often ignores foundational engineering. Enthusiasts obsess over the 450 horsepower of the 1970 Chevelle. Detroit tested those engines in sterile labs. On the street, that rating drops to roughly 285 horsepower. Dropping a modern 600 horsepower engine into a fatigued unibody induces severe structural stress. Builders defend these setups by claiming the car drives straight on the highway. Static alignment means nothing when dynamic geometry collapses mid-corner. Conduct a forensic structural audit today. Park on an uneven surface. Binding doors indicate a twisting unibody. Measure the exact distance between the front shock towers resting on the tires and then suspended on a two-post lift. A 6.35 mm variation confirms fatal chassis sag. Halt welding immediately.